Welcome to Beyond 10, where we dive deeper than your average top 10 list. I'm Aiden Reese, and today we're exploring hidden history, top 10 historical figures who were actually terrible people. Get ready for the most fascinating, bizarre, and mind-blowing facts about hidden history. Let's begin. Number 10. Florence Nightingale. The celebrated Lady with the Lamp harbored dark prejudices and opposed key rights for the very women she supposedly elevated through nursing. Despite her work reforming healthcare, Nightingale actively campaigned against women's suffrage, writing that women's craving for political activity was unnatural and wrong. While portrayed as compassionate, Nightingale described the poor as drunk and immoral, blamed them for their own illnesses, and wrote that the Irish famine deaths were caused by Irish character defects rather than British policies. Perhaps most shocking for the founder of modern nursing was her embrace of eugenics. Nightingale advocated that the unfit, including those with disabilities or mental illness, should not reproduce. Her attitudes toward non-European cultures were equally troubling. In her writings on India, she called the country's inhabitants savages and advocated for forcible civilization of native populations. Even in her professional approach, Nightingale's self-promotion came at the cost of others. She systematically undermined and discredited Mary Seacole, a black nurse who independently provided battlefield care during the Crimean War, ensuring Seacole's contributions remained unrecognized for over a century. Number 9. Albert Einstein. The beloved genius whose name became synonymous with brilliance treated the women in his life as disposable servants while crafting his public image as a humble humanitarian. Einstein's first wife, Mileva Maric, was herself a physicist who many scholars believe contributed significantly to his early work, including the theory of relativity, yet received no credit. Einstein imposed a cruel contract on Maric after their marriage deteriorated, with conditions including, "You will stop talking to me if I request it, and you will not expect any intimacy from me." After divorcing Maric, Einstein married his cousin Elsa, but immediately began affairs with her daughter Ilse and his secretary Betty Neumann. In personal correspondence, Einstein described Asian people as filthy and obtuse, while writing that Palestinians were primitive and like non-trimmed bushes. His callousness extended to his children. When his son Eduard was diagnosed with schizophrenia, Einstein abandoned him to an asylum, never visiting again. While publicly advocating peaceful cooperation between nations, Einstein privately recommended developing the atomic bomb, then later crafted a public image as an opponent of nuclear weapons once the devastation became apparent. Number 8. Christopher Columbus. History textbooks rarely mention that the celebrated explorer began the transatlantic slave trade and committed atrocities so brutal that he was arrested by his own government. Upon arriving in the Bahamas, Columbus immediately captured indigenous Taino people as slaves, writing in his journal, "They would make fine servants. With 50 men we could subjugate them all and make them do whatever we want." When gold quotas weren't met, Columbus had natives' hands cut off and left them to bleed to death. His men tested the sharpness of their blades by cutting off pieces of indigenous people in what one witness described as cutting slices off them to test the sharpness of their blades. Contemporary accounts describe Columbus and his men hunting natives for sport and feeding infants to their war dogs. Within 2 years of Columbus's arrival, half the native population of Hispaniola, 250,000 people, were dead from murder, mutilation, or suicide. Columbus's brutality became so extreme that the Spanish crown arrested and briefly imprisoned him, not for his treatment of indigenous people, but for his brutal mistreatment of Spanish colonists. Number 7. Walt Disney. The man who created The Happiest Place on Earth harbored dark prejudices and engaged in disturbing business practices behind his wholesome public image. Disney served as a secret FBI informant for 26 years, reporting on Hollywood communist activities and helping blacklist fellow filmmakers during the McCarthy era. His reports destroyed hundreds of careers in the film industry. While his theme parks promoted family togetherness, Disney's own relationship with his daughters was strained and distant, with his obsessive work habits leaving little time for parenting. His views on women were particularly regressive. Disney refused to hire female animators, writing in a 1938 rejection letter, "Women do not do creative work." His anti-Semitism was well known in Hollywood circles, with Disney frequently meeting with Nazi filmmaker Leni Riefenstahl and belonging to pro-Nazi organizations like the German-American Bund. Perhaps most revealing was his treatment of employees. While creating films about magical worlds, Disney's workers labored in sweatshop conditions that eventually triggered the bitter 1941 animators' strike, which Disney broke by calling in armed police and firing union organizers. Number 6. Mahatma Gandhi. The global symbol of peace and equality held deeply troubling views and engaged in disturbing personal behaviors that are frequently whitewashed from his legacy. While fighting discrimination in South Africa, Gandhi actively worked to elevate Indians above Black Africans, writing that Indians were infinitely superior and that authorities should deal with the natives as a physician dealing with an anemic patient. In his 70s, Gandhi conducted celibacy tests by sleeping naked with young women, including his 18-year-old grandniece, to prove he could control his urges. When his personal doctor advised against these practices, Gandhi dismissed him. Gandhi's treatment of his family was particularly harsh. He forced his wife and children to clean toilets as part of his rejection of the caste system, yet had others clean his own when traveling. He denied his son Harilal an education in England, then arranged a marriage for him at age 16 to a girl who couldn't read. Most troublingly, when his wife Kasturba contracted pneumonia, Gandhi refused to allow penicillin injections that would have saved her life, calling it alien medicine. Yet when he contracted malaria, he accepted quinine treatment and later allowed doctors to perform an appendectomy when he fell ill. We're halfway through our countdown, and things are about to get even more incredible. If you're enjoying this journey through top 10 historical figures who were actually terrible people, make sure to hit subscribe and that notification bell so you never miss our weekly deep dives into the world's most fascinating subjects. Number 5. John Lennon, the peace-loving Beatles icon who asked us to imagine no possessions, lived a life that contradicted his public image of love and harmony. Behind closed doors, Lennon was physically abusive to women, once beating his first wife Cynthia and saying, "I used to be cruel to my woman, and physically any woman." He abandoned his first son Julian, seeing him only a handful of times after divorcing Cynthia, and later admitted, "I was an absent father." Julian himself revealed, "Dad could talk about peace and love to the world, but he could never show it to his wife and son." When Julian was a child, John would scream at him for simple things like poor table manners and once laughed at his son when he cried. Even more disturbing was Lennon's treatment of the disabled, openly mocking them by performing with twisted limbs and distorted faces at parties, a stark contrast to his public advocacy for marginalized groups. While preaching about love, Lennon admitted he had never loved anyone but himself. Number 4. Henry Ford. The American industrialist revolutionized manufacturing while harboring hateful ideologies that would directly inspire Nazi Germany. Ford published and distributed The International Jew, an anti-Semitic text that circulated 500,000 copies in the US and was distributed widely in Germany, where a young Adolf Hitler kept a photo of Ford on his desk and called him "my inspiration." In fact, Ford is the only American mentioned by name in Hitler's Mein Kampf. Beyond publishing hate literature, Ford employed a personal service department, a private police force that intimidated workers, infiltrated their homes, and ensured they maintained Ford's puritanical standards even in their private lives. Workers caught drinking, gambling, or engaging in immoral relations were immediately fired. When workers tried to unionize, Ford's security forces attacked them in the infamous Battle of the Overpass, where women and children were beaten alongside men. Despite his public persona as a man of the people, Ford once testified in court that history is bunk and actively worked to undermine American democracy through his fascist sympathies. Number 3. Winston Churchill. The heroic image of Britain's wartime leader conceals a man whose policies caused millions of deaths and who expressed views that would shock modern admirers. During the 1943 Bengal famine, Churchill deliberately diverted food supplies from starving Indian civilians, causing approximately 3 million deaths. When officials begged him to send food, Churchill asked, "Why hasn't Gandhi died yet?" and blamed Indians for breeding like rabbits. His racial views were extreme even for his era. He advocated using poisoned gas against uncivilized tribes in Iraq and proudly declared, "I hate Indians. They are a beastly people with a beastly religion." As colonial secretary, he established brutal concentration camps during the Boer War, where 28,000 women and children died of disease and starvation. While rallying Britain against Nazi tyranny, Churchill simultaneously ordered the bombing of civilians in Dresden and supported violent suppression of independence movements in British colonies, once stating, "I am strongly in favor of using poisoned gas against uncivilized tribes to spread a lively terror." Number 2. Mother Teresa. Behind the saintly image of the Nobel Peace Prize winner lurked a troubling reality that few were willing to acknowledge. While portraying herself as helping the sick and dying, Mother Teresa's clinics provided virtually no medical care, despite receiving millions in donations. Medical professionals who volunteered were shocked to find reused hypodermic needles, incorrect diagnoses, and patients who received only aspirin for cancer pain. She believed suffering brought people closer to Jesus, once telling a cancer patient in excruciating pain, "You are suffering like Christ on the cross, so Jesus must be kissing you." Meanwhile, when she became ill, Teresa received treatment in world-class hospitals. Her organization received hundreds of millions of dollars, yet her facilities remained deliberately primitive with minimal spending on actual medical care. Most disturbingly, investigations found many patients could have recovered with basic medical intervention, but were instead left to die, while Teresa's organization stockpiled donations in Vatican bank accounts. Number 1. Thomas Edison. America's celebrated genius inventor built his legend on the crushed dreams and stolen work of others. While Edison is credited with inventing the light bulb, he actually purchased patents from other inventors and merely improved existing designs after numerous scientists had already created working versions. His most disturbing behavior came during the War of Currents, where he publicly electrocuted dogs, cats, and even an elephant named Topsy to demonstrate the supposed dangers of his rival Nikola Tesla's alternating current. Edison's team would invite children to watch these animal executions as educational demonstrations. Behind the scenes, Edison ran a ruthless operation where employees signed contracts giving him ownership of anything they invented, allowing him to claim credit for over 1,000 patents while doing minimal work himself. Perhaps most telling was his treatment of Tesla. After promising $50,000 for improvements to his DC generators, Edison laughed when Tesla succeeded, saying, "Tesla, you don't understand our American humor." And there you have it, the top 10 historical figures who were actually terrible people. Which one surprised you the most? Drop a comment below with your thoughts or suggestions for future topics you'd like us to explore. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up and check out our other playlists covering everything from mind-bending science to dark psychology and unsettling technology. This is Beyond 10, where we don't just list fact, we uncover the extraordinary stories behind them. Until next time, keep questioning, keep exploring, and remember, the most interesting things in life deserve to be ranked.